Dynamite. We give you the help you need in fantasy football. We get ready for another week in the NFL. We'll continue to look ahead at the Grey Cup and what should the Blue Jays do this offseason, plus some UFC and WWE talk. A lot to get to. Big episode. Couch Potato Diary Live starts right now. Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Happy Wednesday. Thank you very much for hanging out today. Like I said, a lot to cover on the program today, and we couldn't do it without the friends over at Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all of that great Calgary swag. Also, we are fueled by Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg and use that code PKPrimetime for 25% off. So today, this is going to be the last live stream of the week. Want to get to a few different things today, so probably going to be a couple different episodes recorded on this particular program. So just letting you know, some things may be a little all over the place, and that's the reason why. So if you're watching live, make sure you get all of your questions in the chat, and a lot of fantasy football questions we've been having over the last few weeks. Would love to keep that rolling here today. Wherever you're watching, whether it be YouTube, Twitch, or Kick, if you could let me know if we're having any video issues, that would be greatly appreciated. Let's begin in the world of fantasy football. Waiver wires are now done, and you don't always get what you want or what you need, but it's a chance to rebound. Here are the most dropped players that we think are a little bit interesting, and the best of what's left as we look at the fantasy football waiver wire rebound. Hello, Deeds, in the chat. Thanks for stopping in today. As always, sir, greatly appreciated. Hello, hello. And thank you to all of you for watching this as we try to recover maybe from a waiver wire period that didn't necessarily go your way. Tuesday, Wednesday, not the only day that we can help out the fantasy team. So today, going to look at the waiver wire rebound. We've done this a couple of weeks in a row, looking at the best available, I guess, and looking at who was the most dropped in fantasy football and seeing if we can maybe get a little bit of value out of that. We will start with what we like out of the most dropped group. And at quarterback, it is JJ McCarthy. He is the second most dropped on Yahoo, and I think he has a really good matchup against the Bears, and he's been pretty serviceable. It's all over the place, and it can be up and down, but I think he is more than an acceptable option if you missed out on your streaming candidate or anything like that. So I think JJ McCarthy really has an opportunity to be a bit of a hidden gem for you in fantasy here this week. At wide receiver, it is Matthew Golden. He was the sixth most dropped wide receiver on Yahoo. It's a cake matchup against the Giants. I get that they haven't really been able to click in the dominant way that we wanted this offense to all season long, but I think it's a real opportunity here and a pretty good lottery ticket if you missed out on some of the wide receiver targets in the fantasy market. At running back, Jordan Mason, fifth most dropped running back on Yahoo. Again, I don't understand why people are bailing on this guy when you have the oft-injured Aaron Jones in front of him. Mason's still getting some looks in this offense and gets a real opportunity if something happens to Aaron Jones. At tight end, it's Dalton Kincaid, the most dropped tight end on Yahoo. He is considered week to week by Buffalo, but if there's a chance he can come back this season, this could be a really, really good ad. If you can afford a roster spot, I think this could be a potential league winner if he does come back in a reasonable time frame. And on the defensive side, very surprised by this one. It's the Cleveland Browns, the second most dropped defense on Yahoo. I think that this is, again, it's a tough matchup this week because you are playing the Baltimore Ravens, but they are one of the best defenses in the NFL. And after this, they get Vegas, San Francisco, and Tennessee. So a pretty good opportunity for this defense to shine for fantasy football owners, and I think they can really step up for a lot of people and maybe even just kind of keep the head above water against a good Baltimore offense this week. So those are the best of the most dropped players in fantasy. We have a question here in the chat. It is from Deeds. Deeds, we'll get to that question here in just a second. By the way, if you're like Deeds, have some lineup questions, fire them away in whatever chat you are watching here, and or in the comments after, and I will answer all of those to the best that I can. So let's take a look at the best of what's still available. We do a waiver wire segment here every week, and the cutoff is 35% owned. Anything above, you can figure it out. But below, we're trying to find some of those hidden gems, and we're going to keep that for the best still available here. So if you missed out on them, he was our waiver wire claim, our streaming option of the week at quarterback. It's Jacoby Brissett, 26% owned. He's been okay in relief of Kyler Murray, now facing a beat-up San Francisco 49ers defense. I think he has a chance to have a pretty good fantasy week. I'm trusting him in one of my leagues. I don't get how he is only 26% owned. I think it's a pretty good opportunity here for Arizona. Again, if you missed out on one of your targets at quarterback, it's a pretty good bounce-back spot for him. At wide receiver, we're going to stay with Christian Watson. He was actually one of the more dropped wide receivers this week. And again, it's a good matchup against the Giants. You don't know where they're spreading the ball around to, but I wouldn't be scared away by a couple of rough games to get things going for him this season. A couple of targets that I think we really want to put some pressure on here. Jaden Higgins from the Houston Texans, 15% owned. He had a dud against the Broncos, but has 16 targets in the last 3 games. Pretty good matchup with the Titans this week, and a few more to close the season. So this is I think a guy that we talked about it with Dalton Schultz yesterday. It's an offense that's getting a little bit better, and an offense that's starting to step up a little bit, and I think Higgins is starting to as well. So again, 1 target a couple of weeks ago against the Broncos, but in between, around that, it was 8 targets and 7 targets. I think he's going to be pretty good, and it's a really good matchup here against the Titans. And then Michael Wilson, just before we came on, Marvin Harrison Jr. was announced that he was out for this game. Michael Wilson going up against a pretty good matchup with the 49ers. He had 7 targets last week. Again, Jacoby Brissett is his quarterback, just keeps the trains running on time. So I think there could be some value gained with Michael Wilson at 96% available in Yahoo leagues. At running back, kind of the ones we talked about before in the waiver wire segment all still apply. Bam Knight, one of the most dropped running backs of the week. I don't get it. Double-digit touches in each of the last 4 weeks, facing a beat-up 49ers defense. And I get DeMarcado has looked like the better guy in a couple of weeks, but Knight is still getting his opportunities, and I think there is some value there for him. Bigsby, 23% owned. It's a handcuff play for Saquon Barkley. Blake Corum, he's had at least 12 touches in each of the last 3 weeks. He is a part of the game plan, and certainly could be a go-to guy if something happens with Kyren Williams. And Sean Tucker, that ownership percentage went up since we talked about it in the waiver wire show yesterday, but double-digit touches the last 2 weeks, facing a Bills defense that has struggled against the run this year, and he's still 13% available. So I would look to see if that guy is still out there in your league. The new one that we didn't talk about yesterday was Kenneth Gainwell, 32% owned for the Steelers. No carries last week. He's definitely the pass-catching back for Pittsburgh, but they have a great matchup here against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think that this could be an opportunity for Gainwell and a lot of players on the Steelers this week to have some pretty good fantasy nights. So again, if we missed out on any running back options, I think Kenny Gainwell, pretty good fallback plan for you there. And then at tight end, it is Luke Musgrave, 12% owned. Not a big debut, or I guess maybe not debut, but in his first opportunity with no Tucker Kraft, he didn't really shine, but that was a defensive battle. I don't think you're going to get that against the Giants this week, so I think still a pretty good opportunity for Musgrave to have a bounce-back game. And then at defense, the waiver wire one that we suggested was Atlanta. Still available, still applies. They're right at that 35% threshold. There's not a lot of great options. Carolina's not a terrible matchup, so I think you can do something with that one. The opposite side of it, I think Carolina, that they are kind of our new rebound pick here. They are 29% owned right now. They played pretty well against the Falcons the last time, who have been a little bit inconsistent. So I think there could be, if you are absolutely desperate, I think there could be an opportunity for them there as well. So those are some of the waiver wire rebounds that we are going to be looking for, trying to take advantage of everyone just being, all right, waiver wire period, done, let's go, we're fine. So yeah, check those out. And again, if you have any questions, we're going to do a lot more fantasy football talk as the stream goes on today and as the week goes on for podcast listeners and for those on YouTube. So if you have any questions at all, get them into the chat or leave a comment. And if you have any thoughts on any of the guys who I just suggested, let me know in the comments as well. And share this video with the folks in your league. I know you want to keep a great secret, all the fantasy football stuff that we got here, but we would love to kind of keep this stuff going and do a lot more in the fantasy football space. Just need a few more people paying attention. So if you could share this video, that would help me out immensely. We had a question in the chat, this one coming from Deeds. So let's get into that one as we compare some wide receivers for the week. Question from the chat, from Deeds. Okay, do we go Judy versus Baltimore or Sutton against Kansas City? I'm not the biggest Judy fan. And just the whole offense in general, right? Like it is a little underwhelming, but I can see where the question is coming from because it is a cake matchup against a beat up Baltimore defense where Sutton, who I think better offense, better football player, but a significantly worse matchup against Kansas City. So that is certainly where a lot of that concern could come from. I do still like going with Sutton in this spot over Judy. I just think even with Baltimore and the struggles they have on the defensive side, it's still a young quarterback. It's still not a very good offense, and it's still something I'm very concerned about there. Where Sutton, yes, Kansas City's defense is good. And no, Denver's offense hasn't been all that great lately, but Sutton still manages to get his. And I think even against this good Kansas City secondary and good Kansas City defense, I still think Sutton is the play there. So I think Cortland Sutton is still the one who gets the advantage there over Jerry Jeudy in the matchup here this week. Toxic in the chat. Make sure you don't give good fantasy advice to Deeds. I'm facing him this week. The Battle of the Titans in the Vampire League. So apologies. Toxic, if you want any more as well, just we can do earmuffs on either side. And we can help out both sides of that matchup. But, I mean, look, everyone's competing for second place in that league because the Vampire team is just going to dominate the rest of the way. And we're going to cruise to wins. So, like I said, everyone just playing for second place right now. But yeah, keep the fantasy football questions coming in the chat, and I will get to them as the show here rolls along. Want to do this now. We're going to keep the NFL conversation going. We kind of got rid of power rankings. Everyone does them. But I do think I still want to assess where we are at in the NFL as we're going down the stretch here, looking at where all these teams stack up. So we're not doing power rankings, but we're going to break everyone into tiers. Who's at the top level? Who's down at the bottom? Where does everyone fit in the National Football League as we head into week number 11? So we are into the stretch run. It is after Remembrance Day in Canada, Veterans Day in the States, coming up on American Thanksgiving. These games are getting very, very important now. So let's see where everyone stacks in. We've broken all 32 teams up into different tiers. So let's get into it. The first one is a tier I am calling Crawling to the Arches, as they are a year away from being a year away. This is not the best quarterback draft. Everyone's still all hot and bothered hoping that Arch Manning turns into something, and that's 2 drafts away. But that's still where these teams are at. It's the Saints, the Jets, the Raiders, and the Browns. Now, a couple of these teams are going to be in a position to draft a quarterback this year. I wonder if Arch is still as big of a prospect as he was a little bit ago, and if someone really blows you away in the draft process this year, because it hasn't really felt like there has been that real clamoring at the quarterback position. So I think that these are these are 4 teams, the Saints, the Jets, the Raiders, and the Browns, who are really struggling, really in need of that quarterback of the future, and might still be a couple years away from getting to that one. Next, we have Cooked, but with hope. It is the Giants, Titans, Commanders, and Panthers. This year isn't it for these teams. And a couple of these teams certainly more cooked than the others are cooked, but I'm putting them all together because it's over. It's done. This season, not going to be anything. But you like where they are at, I think, going forward. to varying degrees. Washington is definitely the more finished product of this group, but they still have, I think, quite a few holes that they need to plug now, coming off of a very disappointing season. But the rest of them, the Giants, Titans, Panthers, they got their quarterback. You know, Giants with Jackson Dart, that's been worked on. You have Cam Ward with the Tennessee Titans. I don't think the problems there are on him. And Bryce Young has shown some promise now in this season where they've picked up a few wins that have surprised some people. They're on the rise a little bit. It's just not going to be this season. Next one is just a very simple question. What are you? And that is the Dolphins, Bengals, Falcons, Cardinals, and Cowboys. All of these teams have good pieces. All of these teams have a lot that I think you can be excited about, but also these teams do not feel like they are in a competitive championship window right now. So for the Dolphins, you have this coach that everyone thinks is a very good offensive mind. You have some pieces on the offensive side that you're really excited about, but it hasn't been able to be put together, and the defense certainly struggles as this year goes on. So there is definitely worry there. For the Bengals, elite offense, one of the worst defenses ever. Which one kind of takes over there? So far, it's been the defense, but they do feel like they're close to get a few good defensive players back there, and hey, look at that, off we go. And the Falcons, it's just been inconsistency with them, where one week they'll look like world beaters. The second, they will look like, maybe not the best team in the NFL, and a bit of a problem there. So we're trying to figure out what they are. Same thing with the Cardinals. They'll have these games that are really close, and it feels like, hey, you should be able to break through, and there's just something missing there. And then with the Cowboys, they're trying to make it work on the defensive side with a couple of big trades, but they're still not as high level of a team as they certainly believe that they are right now. So they all fall into this category. As we're breaking up these teams into tiers in the NFL, we have Chase Underwood, 1671, asking, hey, do you take questions about trade talks? I absolutely do. I'm just going to finish this segment here, and then we'll get into the trade talks here, Chase. So if you can hang tight for a couple of minutes, I will absolutely get to those. And then everyone else, make sure you get your fantasy football questions in here. But we're going to keep rolling now with the NFL tiers. Up next, I call this category, Don't Let Us Get Hot. You heard Kevin Millar say this in the documentary on the 04 Red Sox when they're down 3-0 against the Yankees. And he's saying, hey, don't let us win one, because once we win one, we're going to get going. And I kind of feel that about these teams. The Vikings, the Texans, and the Ravens are in the don't let us get hot category. Because if they get on a roll and if they get into the playoffs, they all have certain aspects of their team that would be scary to play against in the postseason. The Vikings, Justin Jefferson, a high-level offensive mind as a head coach, some really good pieces, and I think a very well-coached defensive football team. On the Texans, it's a championship-level defense, and if they can just get the offense figured out enough to win some of these games, that is not a team I want to play in the postseason. And the Ravens have one of the best players in the sport in Lamar Jackson and a ton of injuries on the defensive side. That would pose a very big problem if they get healthy and face you in the playoffs. Up next, it is just what I call a group of liars. I don't believe you. It is the Steelers, the Jags, and the Bears. I think these teams are quite a bit worse than their record would suggest. I'm not buying it from the Steelers. I think they've got incredibly lucky in a few of their wins this season. Very real win against the Colts. Aside from that, I feel like they've got pretty lucky so far. The Jags, I thought it was a turn the corner moment. Weird game on Monday Night Football against Kansas City, but still one that they can build off of. They haven't really, and I'm just at a point I'm not going to buy it. And the Bears, while we said on here at the beginning of the year, this was going to be a team that could take a step forward in terms of being a serious, legitimate contender, they're not that at all. But good team, not a great team. Up next, I call this group the I love the idea of you, where I don't think these are championship teams, but I like a lot of how they've been put together. I just wish it meshed together a little bit better. And that group is the 49ers, the Bucks, the Lions, and the Packers. The 49ers, a little bit of it is injuries, certainly at the quarterback position, and figuring everything out. Still a lot of pieces on this team that I like. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan is coaching his ass off this year with the quarterback injuries they have. Christian McCaffrey's a beast. Kittle's a beast. And they've been able to piece together a bit of a defense, but that is starting to find some cracks in it as well. So maybe not on that high level, but I like a lot of the pieces there. The Bucks, too, it just they've had some major comeback wins this season and some huge, huge performances. I don't know if they can put it all together when they face the upper echelon in the NFC in a championship game. So I love so much of what the Lions do, or so much of what the Bucks do, and the Lions. I don't know if they can put it together in all of those big spots. Same thing with the Lions. Like I said, like there's so many parts of this team that I think are championship level. I don't think the defense is, and I think the offense has enough flaws that they don't get into that high tier. And the Packers, we loved the Packers coming into the season, and you go through the roster. It's like, well, like that guy, like that guy, like that guy. But for whatever reason, the urgency isn't there. The execution hasn't been there. So I can't put them back into the championship tier just yet. This next one is storming the gates. These are teams that have underperformed this season, but are ready to make a very big stand and get into this postseason picture and make a whole lot of noise. And it's the Chiefs and the Bills. They're just too talented. I know that the records aren't, certainly with Kansas City, what we expect from them. Buffalo's had a few very questionable losses this season. I'm still not excited about playing either of these teams in a playoff game. And still, looking at the Chiefs not being a playoff team, the Chiefs are going to be in the playoffs. I have no question about that. So that this is not something that I think you need to concern yourself with. These are going to be two teams that I think will still be there at the end in the AFC. Up next is I Can't Quit You. We have so many examples of why these teams maybe don't reach that championship level this year, but I have to buy it from them. I can't give it up. And it's the Chargers and the Eagles. I know the offensive line for the Chargers is a problem because of the injuries and everything like that. But still with Herbert and still with how well coached that defense can be, I just can't give up on this LA Chargers team. And for the Eagles, it hasn't looked pretty. It's been a tough hang this year watching Eagles games. And there has been drama and there has been poor execution and poor game planning. But still, when you look at all the talent that this roster has, how aggressive they were at the trade deadline in addressing some needs, some surprising needs on the defensive line and in the pass rush, we get to the playoffs. Am I picking against the Eagles? I'm going to have a really tough time doing that. I'm on the bandwagon on two. It is the the Rams and the Seahawks. I think I did that the other day too. Rams and Seahawks. These are two teams that have blown me away this season and two teams that have now moved into the championship conversation. They absolutely are well-rounded, very strong defensive teams that could win a Super Bowl. And I wasn't saying that at the beginning of the year. So I'm officially on the bandwagon for those two. And the last one, I call this group the graphic designers, who if you do any kind of streaming online, you will see, you'll put a thing up, and as soon as the links go live, they'll click like. Sometimes they'll even hit that retweet. They'll come into the chat. Hey, love your content. By the way, do you need a graphic designer? And so all of it on the surface looks like it should be something that is helpful and it should be something that is really supportive. But then at the crux of it, it really isn't. And that's where I'm at with the Broncos, Colts, and the Patriots. The record looks like a high-level championship team. And all of it, when you kind of piece it together, it's like, okay, there's something here. But then when you take a step back and you look at the big picture, it's still not all the way what you want it to be. Bit of a forced metaphor, but it's the best I could do in like 5 minutes. So that's where I'm like the Broncos, Colts, Patriots, they're all battling for top spot in the AFC, and I don't buy it from any of them. When it comes to the playoffs, again, the Storm and the Gates teams, with the Chiefs and the Bills, I would pick the Chiefs and the Bills over any of these teams right now. So that is where I am at. And that is where I think everyone stacks up in the NFL as we head down the stretch. What do you think? I can't imagine I went 32 of 32 with all of the teams and where you thought they should land. So let me know what you disagree with either in the chat live or in the comments afterward. Like I said, we are streaming this live. We do it live at least a couple times a week, usually, here on Couch Potato Diary. This is the last live stream of the week. Just some other commitments going on with me. So this is your last chance to get those questions in. Next week, we will be back streaming starting on Monday at noon Mountain Time. We have questions in the chat from Chase Underwood 1671. So let's get to them and talk some fantasy football trades at this important time of year. In the live chat over on YouTube, Chase Underwood 1671 sharing his fantasy football conundrums, asking, hey, do you take questions about trade talks? We do. I have Nixon Flacco. I originally wanted to trade for Burrow, but have an opportunity to get Stafford instead. Do we trust Stafford to be a top quarterback over my current two? I wouldn't have to give up much. It would be Stafford for Jameson Williams and Brian Robinson. Or I could do Nix and Rome for Burrow and Tracy. I would still have Flacco too. It's a one flex PPR 12-man. My team is Nix, Flacco, Javonte, Jalen Warren, Breece Hall, Jamar. I don't know what Jajetus is. Apologies on that. Rome, Sutton, Bowers, Jameson, Corum, and Brian Robb. I am 3-7, but just made trades to get here. Just putting all my info in, not meaning to rush. Love the live so far. Well, appreciate that, Chase. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much. The Burrow thing worries me a lot. And that one is the one where you have to give up a little bit more in the trade. And so I feel like, yes, he's coming back and he's practicing and it's all of these things. But the Bengals still aren't really in it when it comes to the playoff discussion. And this was supposed to be an injury that was going to keep him out pretty long term. So yes, he's coming back to practice now, but I'm not necessarily buying that we are going to get, Jajetus is Justin Jefferson. Okay, that certainly helps and is a very good player. But for Burrow, I don't necessarily buy that he's coming back in the next couple of weeks. And I do worry that by the time it is time for him to come back, the team's cooked. Because they kind of are anyway, right? Like, it's not happening for them this season. So why would they rush Burrow back? I do think that he probably plays a couple of games this season, but I don't think it would be worth it, given what you're going to be having to give up here with Nix and Rome Odunze to get to Joe Burrow, and Tyron Tracy as well. The juice isn't worth the squeeze for me on this one. In my opinion, at 3-7, we can't afford to wait. Go with the Stafford trade. I like Matthew Stafford. Tough matchup this week against Seattle, no question. But this is still an offense that is fantasy friendly and a quarterback who has been able to put up some pretty good numbers as the season has gone along. So I think Matthew Stafford, I think that's the play there for sure. Jameson Williams, Brian Robinson, I think that is certainly worth it to get Matthew Stafford in there now. So I absolutely, even though you have Nix and Flacco, like rest of the season, I would take Stafford in a heartbeat over Nix and over Joe Flacco there. The rest of the team feels pretty strong, right? Like if Breece can kind of keep it rolling from what he had a week ago, obviously a lot of skill at wide receiver, but maybe we can use a Nix or a Flacco to flip in another running back. I like Corum. We've talked about him in the waiver wire segments a couple of times here this week, but maybe we can get another high-ish level starting running back in here to kind of round that out a little bit and have Matthew Stafford as the quarterback. I like Stafford a lot. I like this offense a lot, and I think even if there is an injury or two on that offense, I think that they're going to have some success. I'm just trying to pull up here real quick. It looks like I'm distracted because I am. Trying to pull up real quick here. What's the schedule for the Rams the rest of the way? They are that one. Nope. They are. Come on. They are that one. There we go. And now Rams rest of the way. After this one, they have the Bucks. Bit of a not a difficult matchup, but not a cakewalk. But then Carolina, the Cardinals, the Lions, Seahawks again, and then Falcons. That closes out the fantasy football season. So you got some good matchups there, right? Like the Seahawks won in the semifinals of the fantasy playoffs would be difficult. But aside from that, like the Panthers matchup, I know they're good against fantasy quarterbacks this year. That doesn't scare me if I'm the Rams. The Cardinals certainly don't scare me if I'm the Rams. The Lions don't. And the Falcons are all over the place with that, right? So that is the way I would go. I think Stafford is a pretty good addition here for your team the rest of the way. If you're like Chase Underwood and have more fantasy football questions, fire them away, whether it be in the live chat or if you're watching after the fact, you can throw them into the comments of the video. Or if you're listening in podcast form, you can also let me know there and just find me on social media. But yes, we do a podcast, Couch Potato Diary. The stream today is going to be a couple podcasts. So if you want to bring Couch Potato with you, wherever you go, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. Like I've always say, if you have any questions about anything at all, throw them in the chat. We kind of bounce around sports-wise, but I will always come back to whatever you want to talk about. I'll finish the segment, and then we'll circle right back to whatever is on your mind there. So if we're not talking about exactly what you want to be talking about, throw something in the chat, and we can keep the conversation going. We're going to stick with football, just the 3-down variety, as the CFL reaches its Grey Cup here this weekend with Winnipeg playing host to a fantastic matchup. Saskatchewan has been one of the top teams in the league all season long. Montreal has looked like they could be, they just couldn't stay healthy, but they are now. So a very intriguing Grey Cup is ahead with a lot of storylines. Let's take a look at some of the key talking points from this year's Canadian Football League Championship. The Grey Cup is here. It is the best time of year to be a Canadian football fan as Winnipeg plays host to this year's championship game with Montreal taking on Saskatchewan. And I think there's a lot of interesting talking points coming out of this particular matchup. For me, obviously, if you want more Canadian football content from me, it is available over at 3 Down Nation. Do a few stories there, a couple stories there each week. My focus is certainly the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And so that's where I'm going to start here. I had said here a couple of years ago that this felt like an organization that had lost touch with its fan base a little bit. I think the Chris Jones era didn't do a whole lot of favors for anyone. And it felt like since then, it was just, oh yeah, people will come in and we have an attachment because we're the Riders. And it's always that. And there wasn't necessarily that connection with the football team and with one of the more rabid fan bases in all of sport with Saskatchewan. Corey Maas understood what that relationship meant and understood what that relationship needed. And he has come in and turned things around greatly there. The football team too. Like there is a different mentality about this team. You see how they rally to the football. You see how aggressive they can be in the pass rush and going for turnovers as well. He has turned everything around in Regina and has this team on the cusp of a championship for the first time in 12 seasons. But I think that the big thing going forward is that understanding of what this team means in the market and what having that type of a fan base behind you can really mean and getting that connection there. So the turnaround has been nothing short of spectacular. And there are other players who certainly deserve a lot of the credit. I think Trevor Harris kind of bought into that as well. Micah Johnson and Jameer Thurman on the defensive side. But a lot of that stems from the head coach and kind of reestablishing that relationship with the fan base in Saskatchewan. So I think he's done a fantastic job with that as well. Tall John, the crazy watermelon head fans are next level. They certainly are. But that had kind of fallen off a little bit, right? The last couple of seasons going into the Maas tenure, Regina wasn't this very difficult place to play. The Riders weren't a very good team. It was a bit of an issue. And Maas, I think, has really reestablished that relationship with the fan base. And you heard it on Saturday evening in the West Final against the BC Lions. They got that fan base going nuts out there. And they had people really fired up. So that they've been able to get that home field advantage back. And look, Winnipeg is a whole lot closer to Regina than it is to Montreal. They're going to have home field advantage coming up in the Grey Cup on Sunday. So that relationship with the fans could pay dividends one more time. On the other side, Jason Maas is putting together a really good resume. He has been to 5 division finals. This will be his second Grey Cup as a head coach. It's with a second quarterback as well, with Cody Fajardo and now Davis Alexander. It's funny to look at the resume because he's been to 5 division finals. I think they've only hosted like 1. Like the regular season has been a bit of a stumbling block for him, but he has found his way to the division final a ton. And now he is off to the Grey Cup again. He's very well respected, I would say, as a head coach. After it didn't go great out in Edmonton, but he has kind of turned that reputation around. And now a second Grey Cup, gets you in some pretty interesting conversations. So Jason Maas, I think when we're talking about like legacies and stuff like that, I think he has the opportunity to grow his the most with a victory here on Sunday. And he's doing it with a quarterback on the cusp of superstardom. Davis Alexander, the only thing between him and being thought of as one of the faces of the league is health. He wasn't able to stay healthy for a lot of this season, but when he was electric. He is fun to watch, he is very dangerous, and he's undefeated as a starter. If you can add a championship to that resume still in the early stages of his career, the sky is the limit. Like, he feels like he is on the cusp of CFL superstardom. And the league then on the cusp of an epic quarterback battle with him and Nathan Rourke going on for a really long time. So I think, again, when you're looking at legacy, and it's way too early for Davis Alexander, but for here and now, looking at reputationally what this would mean for him, I think there's a lot on the line for him coming up here on Sunday out in Winnipeg. Again, Tall John talking about what the Riders do. They certainly bring the Cam Hughes energy on the field. 100% they do. Yes. Yeah, that is, I've made that comparison often. Yeah, no, totally. When I first read that, I kind of had Charleston Hughes in my mind. And they kind of bring that too, that aggressiveness, but that swagger that comes on the defensive side. But all of that also ties in with one Cam Hughes. And then the last one that I'm looking at here for storylines going into this football game, a lot of them honestly on the Montreal side. For Saskatchewan, this is, I think, maybe a step further than a lot of people thought they were going to get this year. So I'm not saying they're happy to be there, because for an organization that is starved for championships, any opportunity you get to have one is a big one. But there is, because of how good they've been for a little bit, there's a little bit more, I think, storyline-wise, progression-wise, on the Montreal sideline that can kind of round out with a strong performance here in the Grey Cup. And I think part of that too is for Philpott. He had an unbelievable Grey Cup a couple of years ago. That kind of made him a star. Could this now be an encore that takes him to another level in talking about where he fits in with Canadian receivers and receivers in general in the CFL? I still view him as the best receiver in the Canadian Football League. Justin McInnes certainly has a lot to say about that as well. But if he has another good game against a good Saskatchewan secondary, but one that can be vulnerable at times, we're having some fun conversations around this kid as well. So I'm so excited, like I said, for this game coming up on Sunday. A little bit later on in the stream and a little bit later on in the week, podcast-wise, we're going to be talking about the X factors for this Grey Cup and hoping to get more preview stuff in, even when we're not going live for the rest of the week. But of course, you can always check out all my stuff over at 3 Down Nation. And if you want to keep up to date with everything I'm doing, and especially with the show, you can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Twitter, Instagram, X, which is Twitter, Threads, TikTok, all of it. Just find me at Primetime Klein, which is also just kind of like the username here on YouTube if you want to find me, or Twitch and Kick over at Primetime PK. Tall John. Cameron Hughes wore a watermelon head at Bishop's University student and did his cheer, just for an old school FYI. Ooh, wow, I did not know that. Good to know. Good to know. About someone who I've spent quite a bit of time working alongside over the last little while. Again, whatever you guys want to talk about, throw it in the chat. We're going to pivot away from football here for a little bit. Get back to it as the stream kind of rolls on. But yeah, we're going to move now to the world of the UFC as we get ready for UFC 322. 2 title fights at the top of this card, but there's also some very intriguing fighters to watch coming up on Saturday. And this is a deep card with some major implications up and down. So let's take a look at the 5 fighters that we need to watch coming up on Saturday. Here is your quick breakdown of the fighters to watch, the 5 fighters you need to pay attention to coming up at UFC 322 this weekend. We know the 2 title fights are big, but there are some major implications up and down this card. We'll start with Erin Blanchfield, fresh off of a win over Rose Namajunas, now getting a matchup with Tracy Cortez as she tries to work her way back into title contention. I think not a fork in the road moment necessarily, but it kind of feels like that actually, coming off of a loss against Fiorot and now a win against Rose Namajunas. A loss here, it's losses in 2 of her last 3, and some tough conversations might be had. On the flip side, a win here, and now you can overlook a loss to Fioro, who is a just perma challenger in women's MMA. And you have now a couple wins over a couple pretty solid fighters in Cortez and Namajunas. So this is a very big fight to kind of determine what path Blanchfield can go down here over the next 12 to 18 months. Up next is Bo Nickel. Speaking of interesting paths, this dude's road to superstardom hit a speed bump with a loss to De Ridder. Maybe we were getting into too much too soon categories here, but it still was a meteoric rise and a pretty surprising loss, even against a veteran fighter like De Ridder. So, what I always like to see when you have a prospect getting a lot of those good headlines, how do we respond now? He was doing some stuff with the real American wrestling thing and all of that. Where's the attention at? Where is his mental state at? Rodolfo Vieira is not De Ridder, but he's not someone that you can just lay around with and, oh yeah, we'll get to him. That's fine. He has to be on his game. Will he be on Saturday? Benoit Saint Denis is the next fighter to watch at UFC 322. I thought lost a lot of momentum with 2 fights in a row. Again, maybe just a little bit too much too soon, but he's bounced back now with 2 wins in a row and an interesting measuring stick now, going up against Beneil Dariush, whose title aspirations probably feel like they're a bit out of reach, but still wants to step up with a big performance and come up with a big fight. That is a very good test now for Saint Denis. Where is he at in the UFC's kind of hierarchy at this particular time? I'm very interested to see how he handles a big fight for him. And then the last 2 fighters to watch are facing each other. We could determine another title challenger at welterweight, the welterweight belt on the line in the main event. But just a bit before that, it's going to be Michael Morales against Sean Brady. Morales is 26 years old. He's undefeated, coming off of the biggest win of his career against Gilbert Burns, while Sean Brady has won 3 straight after a loss to Leon Edwards and is just perpetually in the title picture at 170 pounds. So the winner of this going to have a very, very close eye on what happens in the main event with Jack Della Maddalena and Islam Makhachev. So those are the 5 fighters that I'm going to keep an eye on this Saturday at UFC 322. Who are you watching for? Let me know in the chat or in the comments, and we can see what else to pay attention to. There's a lot to keep an eye on here for Saturday's UFC card. Again, if you're watching this after the fact, we do go live on Couch Potato Diary multiple times most weeks. You can get notified of that on YouTube if you just hit that bell button and, hit subscribe. Helps out as well, so you know when we go live. From the chat, a couple people letting us know of a couple of different things, but we got Deeds. Back on the CFL front, the fact the Riders haven't done a special edition watermelon head helmet still seems like a missed opportunity to me. They had some foam ones a few years ago, but no, you're right. It feels like they haven't necessarily fully leaned in on that one just yet. And you're talking to the guy who had, at some point, I think it's gone now, but a cowboy hat out of a Pilsner beer box. So they've done stuff like that in the past. But, a little bit surprising they haven't gone that route right now. Also, Alex Savin, 910. Hey, guys, this is my team for Week 11. What do you think? So let's help Alex out with some fantasy football. Well, let's bounce back in to the world of football and help out Alex with a lineup decision. In the live chat over on YouTube, Alex is asking the question, hey guys, this is my team for Week 11. What do you think? We got Drake May and Henderson along with Judkins, JSN, JJ McBride, Mbuka on the bench. Mbuka, and then on the bench is Woody, Bucky, Harvey, Wandale, Corum, Pierce. Any changes, 10-man PPR. First of all, very solid squad. Very, very solid squad here. Alex, looking at it here, I don't think I would change anything. Bucky Irving back at practice this week. It seems like he has been spotted. Keep an eye on his status. There might be something there. If he is available, and if, this is one where the reports have to be glowing. And, oh yeah, we're going to just see what he has. He's ready to come back, blah, blah, blah. That, probably a stay away, because you don't want to get lumped in with a 3-headed monster. But if they're like, I've never seen someone so healthy in my life, and this guy needs to really get in this lineup, he's going to be a stud for us this week, I think you have to roll with it. It's a really good matchup against Buffalo, who have struggled against the run this season. So the problem is here, the one who I would take out would be Henderson. And I have concerns about that with that being Thursday. I don't think we're going to know about Bucky by the time Thursday rolls around. And it's not like you can just throw him on your flex because then we're going without Mbuka. And I still think he's a pretty solid option for Tampa Bay this week in what I think is going to be a high-scoring game against the Buffalo Bills. So I would lean towards Bucky if he is fully 100% healthy, but I don't think it's going to line up based on the schedule for you this week. I don't think that's going to be necessarily the play to make here. At wide receiver, obviously Golden. At tight end, we're obviously... And I don't mean the Packers receiver. I mean, your team is great. So honestly, Alex, I think you're locked in. I would love to be the smartest guy in the room and no, well, actually, you should put this guy into your lineup. You got a very solid squad here, and it looks like you got the right people in the right places. If you're like Alex and maybe you just need the validation, throw the fantasy football questions into the chat or into the comments if you are watching this video afterwards. We are, for the live stream, going to get to more football as we go on. And look, I didn't plan on doing that right there. Ask a question, I'll finish what I'm talking about, and then we can lump back in right away. So, all right, never was going to play Bucky this week, but thanks, man. So, good to know. Again, like if he is fully healthy, there's some thoughts there, but because of the good matchup, but otherwise, yeah, no, we're not going with like Pierce. No, he's bye week this week, so never mind. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else that you could really switch up on that team. Looks really good out there. So, yeah, thanks for the question there, Alex. Greatly appreciated. We are going to move to the world now of professional wrestling. But again, if you have any questions about anything else, throw them in the chat. And I will bounce back to it once the conversation is done. But the WWE was back in Boston for Monday Night Raw on the John Cena retirement tour. And they put on one hell of a show and a very fitting performance for John Cena's last in his hometown. Let's talk about it. Tall John in the Twitch chat saying that was an epic Raw. It really was. I was a little bit worried going in, but we talked about it, Tall John, like, there are some ways that we could have a pretty good show out of this one, and they did. I thought they treated, like, with Triple H coming out and Cena and all of that, they made it feel like this was a special Raw. They made it feel like this was a really, really big deal. I think, just like a couple of producery type notes, I think having that right off the top and then immediately going into an impromptu match with Dominic Mysterio, that kept me, I was anticipating, okay, let's see the Cena thing, 6:15, football game will come on, I'll bounce over to that. I tuned into the football game late in the first quarter because I was watching the John Cena stuff and just couldn't turn away. So I think they did a really good job with how they set that up. And Cena delivered in every way possible. Also, Juan Pena in the live chat. I see we're asking some fantasy football stuff. I'll get to that here once the wrestling conversation is done. But back on the Cena front, I think they nailed it. Like I said, I think they made it feel like a big deal. His promo was excellent. Triple H, maybe it felt a little bit like, hey, look at me out there. And I know some people are kind of accusing him of that right now. But I also think it made sense to do that, to tie in, we're making a match out of this, and it's going to be for the Intercontinental title. I think all of that worked perfectly. And again, like Cena on the mic, he is showing that there are levels to this. And Dom is really good, but I think that, like, Dom hung with him quite well. But Cena did show that he is, among the current crop, he is absolutely one of the best, and one of one, really. You just see the intensity, the passion, everything that he can bring with that. I thought he was excellent in this, and Dom felt like a main eventer, felt like he belonged in this particular moment. The match itself was what it was. Like, it wasn't a blowaway thing or anything like that, but Cena winning the Intercontinental title is really fun, and I think it adds another layer of intrigue now to all of this. I think that there's going to be a few interesting stories you can tell coming out of the IC title. A lot of people thought this was going to happen at Survivor Series, and so now obviously this opens up Cena for War Games. I think the tying everything together in the next week is going to be very fascinating to see how all those stories play out at Madison Square Garden with the tribal chief coming in, to Tall John's point, opening Cena up now for War Games, and maybe opening up a Dominic Mysterio, Rey Mysterio match at San Diego. that this has all been very, very well done and very well put together. And a bit of a surprise with this happening on Monday and not at Survivor Series like a lot of people were anticipating. The War Games announcements, like, oh, a bunch of people are being thrown together and challenging each other. What could this possibly mean? So there is a little bit of predictability when it comes to that. I thought Punk bringing in Regal on the War Games line was really good. I thought they did that very effectively. And then Rhea coming out a return after busting up her nose in Japan and just yelling War Games. Like it's the best you can do with it, announcements that we all saw coming. So, like, again, these things when you have the WWE doesn't do it anymore or as much anymore, but when you know the next pay-per-view is War Games and now a bunch of people are feuding all at once, oh, I wonder what this means. So there is some predictability, but I think they made it entertaining nonetheless. Speaking of predictable but still fun, Nikki Bella with the heel turn. We all saw that coming. Everyone knew that was coming. I didn't know it was coming Monday, but we all saw that happening eventually. This is going to be the better side of Nikki Bella. Her as a babyface, honestly, like her as a character, just in general, I have always felt with her that it always feels like I am playing the role of Nikki Bella, and this is what I am supposed to say, and this is what I am supposed to do, and this is me being a professional wrestler. Like, it has always felt like I'm very aware she's playing a character, right? It's never felt genuine, but the closest you get to it is her as a heel. And so I think this will be good with Stephanie Vaquer, with Nikki mispronouncing Stephanie's name right off the hop, that there's a little bit of fuel added to it, and I think a fun direction that you can go with this. So I like how this is set up, and it was, again, predictable, but the right move to make. Real good matches in the Last Time Is Now tournament with the Priest, Rusev, Nakamura, and Sheamus, a couple bangers. And we get a really fun one next week with Javon Evans against Gunther. That's going to be incredible. Oh, that's going to be so much fun. And a couple surprises now on Friday and on Monday as well. They have set this tournament up, I think, perfectly. Everything around it the last little bit has been done very, very well. I've also really liked the build-up of Maxine Dupri, and I think they've done a good job of kind of highlighting, hey, this isn't someone who's just getting by on her looks. Maxine certainly has the look of someone who would be a heel, right? Like, it has been a stereotypical thing in wrestling for a really long time. So, hey, look, attractive female. Oh, she probably sucks. So, and how can you relate to someone who looks that good? So it must be a heel. But they've done a good job of adding personality to her with the Otis stuff. And then also now with this, you have a lot of people who get frustrated at certain wrestlers who can get by based on their looks and everything like that. And so we are looking for improvements in their wrestling, and you get their matches picked apart. They've done a great job of saying, hey, Maxine is training hard every week, and you just get that in people's minds, so it doesn't have some of the, I guess, stereotype of gorgeous woman wrestler who doesn't do a whole lot. But you also don't overexpose her in matches every week and go, well, maybe she isn't that good. And this is just a whatever storyline. Like, I think they have protected her in a really unique, very strong way, while also driving home a story that kind of goes against what a lot of people would traditionally view a Maxine Dupri as. So I think they've really built this up well. Honestly, I could see her winning the Intercontinental Championship, or getting some, like, with help from AJ Lee coming in and costing Becky, and that turns into a feud, or Becky beats her, beat down, and then AJ Lee comes out and goes for the championship after. But either way, I think this is where we get AJ Lee back involved in everything. And the new tag team champs on the women's side, we talked about it before, how we kind of assumed that could be coming. The Nia and Lash legend pairing threw me off the scent a little bit, but this was still something we all kind of anticipated would be happening, but still very well done and sets up War Games quite well. Back in the chat, Tall John Regal was a surprise. That was cool. Like, it was a fun touch to have that. And yeah, we weren't expecting it. And to set that up very well, I thought was chef's kiss. Bravo. Really well done on that side. Overall, like Tall John said, this is a really good episode of Monday Night Raw. And they have had their hits, they've had their misses, but it does feel like quite a few things are starting to kind of culminate here. We just need an LA Knight more involved than what he is at this particular time. But yeah, share your wrestling thoughts. What was your favorite part of Raw? Am I off on anything? Was there something you hated that I was just gushing about? Let me know either in the chat or in the comments. But we have Juan Pena over on YouTube asking a few questions about fantasy football. So let's dive back in to the football conversation. We get ready for another week in the NFL and taking some questions in the live chat. Juan Pena asking, who for my quarterback one this week? A lot of options here with Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, JJ McCarthy, Jacoby Brissett, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco, and Davis Mills. So honestly, just at a quick glance of this group, I'm kind of digging JJ McCarthy. He was our waiver wire rebound of the week, looking at players who are the most dropped. It's a great matchup. Chicago gives up the third most points to quarterbacks this season. And so I like the matchup there for him. CJ Stroud against the Tennessee Titans is a very good one as well. I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. I would give McCarthy a slight edge there. The offensive line is a little bit better, but both matchups are very good. Bo Nix against the Chiefs, I'm just out on. Rodgers, I know it's a good matchup against Cincinnati. I still worry just about how it has looked the last couple of weeks, even though he'll probably get his. I still like McCarthy and Stroud over Aaron Rodgers. Flacco for Cincinnati against Pittsburgh. The Steelers defense hasn't been great shakes at all, but I think there's more upside with some of the other guys. And Mills for the Texans, it was fun. Or not, sorry. Stroud and Mills on the same team. So we'll see. If I got thrown off there for a second. Apologies. Mills, whichever one is healthy, I still like McCarthy in that spot a little bit better. Yeah, sorry about that. Just read off a bunch of names and kind of, okay, well this. So sorry that I got that kind of mixed up there. But no, JJ McCarthy would be the one that I would go with. And remembering now the injury issues, I would go McCarthy and then Rodgers and then Brissett. Would probably be next up for me there. Those would be kind of the ones that I would look at. Looking also at questions about wide receiver. Who for my wide receiver 1, 2, 3, and flex spot. So we got a whole list of them here on YouTube. Adam Samuel, Quentin Johnston, Jacoby Myers, Addison Washington, or Tez Johnson. Also Charbonnet or DeMarcado over the wide receivers. Running backs are Jacobs and Henderson with Taylor on a bye. So we're keeping the running backs in there. We're not putting Charbonnet or DeMarcado in over Jacobs or Henderson. When we're looking at 3 wide receivers, I know that Adams is questionable. He's going to be questionable for the rest of the season. You go with him. Even though it's a tough matchup against Seattle, I think you just have to roll with that guy in that spot. So I like Devontae Adams there. Deebo Samuel, again, it's with Mariota throwing him the football. It's against a pretty good matchup in Miami. So I think we kind of keep an eye on the health and everything like that. But Deebo, I think, could be a play, certainly. Quentin Johnston against Jacksonville. It's been hit or miss for Quentin Johnston the last little bit, and Jacksonville's defense can be a little bit more on the difficult side. In that same matchup, Myers against the Chargers, I'm just out on. Addison, I think you can put up some points against Chicago. So honestly, I might go here, Adams, Samuel, Addison, and then go for a bit of a home run swing with a Tez Johnson against Buffalo. I think that there's an opportunity for him to have a big play that gets you there. So I would say for my pick on this one, I would go Adams, Samuel, where did we go here? Adams, Samuel, Addison, and Tez Johnson are my options there. And then who would you trade? Would you trade Zach Charbonnet for T. Higgins? Again, you have Jacobs and Henderson. Yes, I would. I absolutely would. I think T. Higgins, like that offense, he puts up points. And Charbonnet has been good, but they don't really trust him. It doesn't seem like anyway, to be the guy. Tough matchup against the Rams this week. I like that. I would like that trade a lot. Yeah, if you could bring T. Higgins into the fold and really solidify that wide receiver room, I think you have a very good opportunity to take advantage of that. So I like that spot a lot for you there, Juan Pena. I like that one quite a bit. If you can make that trade, Charbonnet for Higgins. Get your fantasy football questions in on the chat. Again, we're going to pivot away for a second and then probably come back to fantasy football here in just a moment. But for right now, get the questions in and I will get to it as quickly as I can. We have Tall John asking a wrestling related question in the chat. So let's get into this as we take a look at what could WWE do with some of the mystery opponents for John Cena's Last Time Is Now tournament. A lot of focus on what is next, or what is last, I guess, for John Cena in the Time Is Now tournament that kicked off on Monday. A couple of surprises being thrown out by the WWE for Friday and then on Monday. So Tall John in the Twitch chat asking, I have no clue who the mystery opponents are. Do you think an old WWE wrestler from another brand will make a surprise show in the tourney or Survivor Series, i.e. Edge, or someone moving over on a contract? I still think the Edge part would be, I mean, obviously we would have a lot of fun with that. I think it might be a little pie in the sky. Everyone kind of tying it together that he went to, he left AEW as this whole thing was coming on, but he's off shooting a movie right now. So that part would really surprise me. One of the ones, and I think it would be Monday at Madison Square Garden because of the history that his family has there and the name that he is. I would not be surprised if it was Chris Jericho on Monday, going into that one with LA Knight. I think you would have a ready-made feud with LA Knight and Chris Jericho. I think that would be a whole lot of fun and elevate LA Knight. It brings Jericho back. A lot of talk about what he's doing contractually right now. So that would be kind of my prediction for Monday, is Chris Jericho in there against LA Knight. The other one for Friday is interesting because I don't think there's anyone outside right now that would be that I could realistically see coming in that would be worth a surprise and all of us thinking about, right? Like I think it would be neat if it was like Joe Hendry or something like that, but I also don't think that that's a surprise that you want to tee up when everyone is thinking about Edge or something along those lines. So I think that like that maybe is a little underwhelming. Trick Williams, like I think he is main roster ready and probably should have been there a while ago. So like that could be one, but again, is that worth the surprise? And then Obafemi is the last one that I think is certainly a surprise option there. And then if we're looking like AAA, is this where you bring in Vikingo, right? Because I've said for a bit, it's time for this dude to get out of the AAA thing and have people hating him there. He's pretty beloved by the WWE fans, so I wonder if Vikingo is the one on Friday. That would, of the possible surprises that I could see, that's kind of it. Unless I'm wrong and it's Edge. That's obviously a major thing, but I personally don't think that that's going to be what it is, right? So I wonder, like, could you do something where it's Vikingo on Friday comes in as the surprise, whatever. Dom tries to costume it. Rey Mysterio comes out, jumps Dom, and Vikingo gets the win, and you have a bit more of a storyline set up there with all kind of three of them dancing around. So I wonder if you could do something with that as well. Joe has his own storyline with the mixed tag going on, so I don't put him on the list. Yeah, I mean, that's an NXT thing. You could just, like, have him do both. I would also, I wouldn't envision Joe Hendry going far in the tournament right now. So just trying to think of anyone else who it could possibly be, like from an injury standpoint, someone coming back or anything along those lines. Like I don't think there is anything like that necessarily. So I don't know, like unless it's like a Frankie Kazarian or something from Impact or Dolph Ziggler. That would be interesting if it's Nick Nemeth coming in on the Friday one. Like Dolph Ziggler and John Cena had some stuff for a little bit, so I wonder if you do something like that as well. But I think the Monday one is going to be the big one, and my pick for that is Chris Jericho. But it's fun to have this kind of intrigue around something with WWE at this particular time. So again, keep the chats coming. Whatever you guys want to talk about, throw it in the chat, and we can keep having our conversations there. That's not the only big thing happening in wrestling, as AEW is promising blood and guts ×2 tonight. What can they do with their version of War Games just a couple of weeks before WWE heads into their cages? Let's get ready for what should be a wild night in AEW. AEW is bringing blood and guts twice to television this evening as their version of War Games hits the screens a couple of weeks before WWE does theirs. I do like doing this for AEW first, going with their version of it ahead of the WWE, kind of set that standard and like, hey, match this, instead of looking like they're just a repeat afterward. I like kind of setting that bar right away and doing it on free television instead of an app in the States on ESPN. So I'm interested to see, when you have now two matches like this, how do they separate themselves? What happens in the women's match that doesn't in the men's, and vice versa? So there's obviously some aspects that you have to keep the same, but some that I think you have to show some variety with as well. So I'm happy the women are getting this opportunity, and I think it's going to be a pretty creative match on both sides. On the men's, I think there's a lot more story going with this one. I think there's a lot of people anticipating that this ends up being the kind of killing off of the Jon Moxley character for a little bit, as their decline post All Out, All In, all of those continues. I still think having Marina as the leader of this group makes all the sense in the world. So I could see that side, the Death Riders losing on the men's side, and you get Jon Moxley being forced out of the group and kind of continuing the story of him falling off over the last couple of months. The other part of this, I wonder how different this match will be from that big cage match the Death Riders had with Team AEW a couple of months ago. Obviously, there's two rings involved this time, but like that was the one where Darby Allin and Gabe Kidd go through all the tables and everything like that. Like what kind of a different match do we have there? Because that's something I've said. We're getting into way too many hardcore matches in AEW, and I know for a lot of people that happened a long time ago, and for some people the limit will never be reached. But you need to do something to differentiate yourself. And now there's a couple of these. It can't just look the same as the other one did. So I'm fascinated to see how they structure this all. And I think the story coming out of the men's one is going to be quite interesting compared to the women's side of it. Also, on this show, we're getting Hangman Page against Powerhouse Hobbs in a no-holds-barred match, or false count anywhere, something along those lines. Sorry, I forgot to look that up. But I like Hobbs a lot, and I think this is a great spot. Like, this is the show that is going to have quite a bit of eyeballs on it, given it's one of the bigger ones that they do for free television. And I think that Hobbs deserves this kind of a spotlight, and I think this is a really good opportunity for him to showcase what he can do against the guy who right now is the standard bearer in All Elite Wrestling. So I think a very, very good opportunity here for Hobbs to show what he can do in the main event spot against a champion, while also providing a bit of that safety net where if the match sucks, you still have two wild and crazy matches going on. So I think this is a pretty smart bit of booking to put this match here on what should be a pretty wild card for AEW. As far as everything else in AEW, haven't had a chance to talk about it. I will join the chorus of thousands in saying that the national championship is a stupid idea, and introducing another title for AEW, and this one's going to be the one defended around the world. Well, that was the what was it? The Pan American Championship or whatever that was supposed to be. Remember, we had clips of Pac defending it, this, that, and the other spot. I thought that's what that one was supposed to do. And now you have the unified title, which sounds a whole lot like the undisputed title, but it's not, because it's just the unified title. And now you have the national title. It's dumb. I hate it. 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 So stop it. I hope that I hope that we get a bit of clarification on some stuff, but I greatly dislike what AEW is doing with their championship picture at the moment. And I know I'm not alone in that. I know that there's a lot of people who are quite frustrated with that with AEW at this particular moment. So that is going to do it for the Wednesday podcast here. And again, there's a lot more that I want to get done on this stream. I am having a bit of a technical blip on my end at this current moment, so I'm going to try to fix this here on the fly right away, but we are having a bit of a technical problem, so hopefully this doesn't get too far in the way of the stream today. going to clear some stuff out, and that didn't seem to really work. So, unfortunately, technology not on our side for this one. So, going to call it here. Thank you all so much for watching today. This is the last live stream of the week, which makes this a bit of a bummer because there's a lot more I wanted to talk about with you guys today. But watch for the fantasy football preview episode that'll be coming out. Watch for some more Grey Cup preview, some more Blue Jays off-season talk. I really wanted to talk about that with everyone today. So hopefully we'll get a bit of a live stream to get that going, but just having some technical issues on my side that I need to address right now. So going to let you guys go. Thank you all so much. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, everybody.